Between the Mediterranean Sea and the Jordan River lies a narrow stretch of land that has shaped human history for thousands of years. A place where stone remembers footsteps, and landscapes carry the imprint of countless generations. Here, hills rise gently from coastal plains. Deserts open into valleys. Ancient trade routes once threaded between continents, linking Africa, Asia, and Europe. Long before modern borders, this land served as a meeting ground of people, ideas, faiths, and cultures. Civilizations passed through and settled here, drawn by water, fertile soil, and strategic position. Each left marks that remain visible today in language, architecture, agriculture, and ritual. Cities were built and rebuilt. Sacred spaces layered one atop another. History accumulated rather than disappearing. For many, this land holds profound meaning. It is holy ground for multiple faiths. A homeland shaped by memory and belief, a place where identity is deeply connected to geography. Yet this same land is also home in the most ordinary sense. Understanding Israel and Palestine requires patience. It means recognizing that this place cannot be reduced to a single story. It is shaped by overlapping narratives, each rooted in genuine connection to the land. To walk these landscapes is to encounter continuity and change at once. The past is never fully distant here. It lives in stone streets, cultivated terraces, and shared horizons. This is a land of layers, ancient, complex, and deeply human. So sit back, grab your snacks, and let's explore Israel and Palestine. Long before the emergence of modern nations, this land was defined by its geography. Rainfall patterns, river systems, and terrain shaped how people lived and moved. Along the coast, fertile plains supported agriculture and trade. Ports connected the region to the wider Mediterranean world, bringing goods, languages, and ideas. Inland, hills and valleys offered protection and farmland, while deserts demanded careful adaptation. Early communities learned to live with the land's limits. Water was stored, redirected, and shared. Terraces were carved into slopes to prevent erosion. Over thousands of years, different civilizations rose and fell. Canaanites, Israelites, Assyrians, Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, Romans, and Byzantines each governed portions of the region. Later, Islamic caliphates and the Ottoman Empire ruled for centuries. shaping administrative systems, architecture, and daily life. Jerusalem became a focal point, not because of its size or resources, but because of its spiritual significance, sacred to Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. The city grew layer by layer. Each era building upon the last. Despite political shifts, rural life remained relatively constant. Farmers planted olives and grains. Pastoral communities moved seasonally with livestock. Markets connected villages and towns. Identity during much of this period was shaped less by fixed orders and more by local ties, family, faith, profession, and place. People belonged to regions, cities, or religious communities, rather than abstract states. This long history created a landscape dense with memory. Ancient roads became modern streets. Sacred sites remained in use for centuries. The land absorbed human presence without erasing what came before. Understanding this deep continuity is essential. The modern era did not begin on empty ground. It emerged on land already lived on, cultivated, and understood in many different ways. By the late 19th century, the world beyond this region was changing rapidly. Empires weakened. New political ideas spread across continents. National identity began to reshape how people understood belonging. For Jewish communities in Europe and elsewhere, centuries of persecution and exclusion fueled new movements seeking safety and self-determination. Zionism emerged as a political response to lived experience, envisioning a homeland in the historic land of Israel. At the same time, Arab communities living in Palestine developed their own growing sense of collective identity. Families had lived on the land for generations, farming, trading, and building towns under Ottoman rule. They, too, sought political recognition and autonomy as imperial structures weakened. World War I marked a turning point. The collapse of the Ottoman Empire brought the region under British administration. Britain's role introduced new legal systems and international commitments. including support for a Jewish national home, while also promising protections for existing communities. Jewish immigrants arrived in greater numbers, establishing towns, agricultural collectives, and institutions. Palestinian Arab society continued its own social and economic development, adapting to rapid change. These transformations altered daily life. Land ownership patterns shifted, cities expanded. Economic competition intensified. Tensions grew not from a single cause, but from overlapping fears and aspirations. Different communities imagined different futures for the same land. Efforts to reconcile these visions struggled against mistrust, uneven power, and the legacy of colonial administration. Violence occasionally erupted, followed by attempts at negotiation. By the 1940s, it became clear that the existing framework could not contain the competing national movements. The question of how this land should be governed had moved from local concern to international focus. What followed would reshape the region permanently, not only through political decisions, but through their lasting impact on ordinary lives. As the population swelled, the physical footprint of civilization surged beyond the ancient city walls. New neighborhoods of stone and concrete rose from the dust, often constructed within sight of traditional mud brick villages that had remained unchanged for centuries. This was a visual geography of contrast. Modernist architecture rising alongside olive groves, and iron-rimmed reels turning on paths designed for sandals. In the bustling coffeehouses and market stalls, the air was thick with the debate of the day. As people watched the physical world they knew being rebuilt in real time. It was a time of immense energy and profound uncertainty, where every new road paved and every foundation laid served as a physical marker of a future that was being decided one brick at a time. By the mid-20th century, the question of governance in this land could no longer be postponed. The British Mandate faced mounting pressure from competing national movements, rising violence, and international scrutiny. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a plan to partition the territory into two states, one Jewish and one Arab. With Jerusalem under international administration. The proposal reflected global attempts to resolve overlapping claims, but it also exposed deep divisions. Jewish leadership accepted the plan as a path toward statehood. Many Arab leaders rejected it, viewing the division as unjust and imposed. In May 1948, the British withdrew. The State of Israel was declared. What followed was a regional war involving neighboring Arab states and newly formed Israeli forces. For Jewish communities, the declaration represented a moment of national realization. A homeland established after centuries of dispersion and persecution. Shaped profoundly by the memory of the Holocaust. For Palestinian Arabs, the same period marked profound disruption. Hundreds of thousands fled or were displaced from towns and villages amid fighting and fear. Many became refugees, settling in neighboring regions or within what would become the West Bank and Gaza Strip. This experience became known as the Nakba, the catastrophe, and remains central to Palestinian collective memory. When the fighting ended in 1949, armistice lines replaced proposed borders. Israel controlled more territory than outlined in the UN plan. The West Bank came under Jordanian administration. Gaza was governed by Egypt. No Palestinian state emerged at that time. The land had been reshaped not only politically, but socially. Families were separated. New communities formed. Old ones vanished from maps but endured in memory. These outcomes were not abstract. They altered where people lived, how they moved, and what futures they imagined. The consequences would echo for generations. As the new boundaries were drawn and redrawn, the daily rhythm of life for millions entered a state of profound suspension. In the wake of the armistice, a massive effort to build and reconstruct began. With new towns rising from the earth almost overnight to accommodate those who had arrived, while other areas fell into a haunting stillness. This era was defined by the clatter of heavy machinery clearing debris and the silent, heavy labor of families carrying their entire lives in bundles across the hills. It was a period of intense activity and deep mourning occurring simultaneously, where the creation of a new national reality was inextricably bound to the loss of an older, shared world. A landscape of triumph and trauma existing side by side in the same ancient soil. In the decades that followed, daily life unfolded within shifting political realities. Borders hardened and softened. wars changed control of land. Agreements redefined administration. After 1967, Israel occupied the West Bank, East Jerusalem, and Gaza following another regional war. Military governance, checkpoints, and new administrative systems reshaped movement and access. For Palestinians living in these territories, daily routines adapted to new constraints. Work, education, and family visits often required permits or long travel. Villages and cities continued to function. Markets opened, schools operated, religious life persisted, but under heightened uncertainty. Israeli society also changed. Cities expanded. New immigrants arrived from across the world. Security concerns became a constant feature of public life. Despite political tension, ordinary moments continued on both sides. Children attended school. Farmers harvested olives. Shopkeepers greeted familiar faces. In refugee camps, families built lives amid displacement. Communities formed dense networks of support. Stories of villages left behind were passed down to younger generations, preserving memory through language and tradition. Periods of uprising, negotiation, and conflict alternated. Each left physical and emotional traces on the landscape. Walls, scars, memorials. Yet daily life did not stop. People adapted, as they always had, to circumstances beyond their control. This era saw the rise of a new geography. A landscape of fragmentation where the straight lines of maps collided with the curved reality of the Earth. People learned to read the land through its obstacles, a journey that should have taken minutes, often stretched into hours. The view from a car window became a sequence of barriers and bypasses. As the architecture of separation grew taller and more permanent. To live here was to exist in a state of constant transition, where the horizon was always framed by the structures built to divide it. Turning every commute into a silent negotiation with the map. Beyond the concrete and stone, the lines were felt in the very tempo of the day. Time itself seemed to move differently depending on which side of the line one stood. In the long queues at transit points and the crowded waiting rooms of administrative offices, life was lived in the pauses. Yet, within these gaps, a stubborn normalcy thrived. People shared news in the heat of the sun. Children played in the shadows of tall fences. And life continued to pulse through the narrowest of openings. These were the lives lived in the margins, a persistent, human refusal to let the lines on a map define the limits of a soul. Understanding this period means looking beyond headlines. It means recognizing that political realities are lived at human scale. In commutes delayed, harvest interrupted, celebrations postponed or held quietly. Life between lines became the defining experience of millions. Amid division, culture remains a shared language. Food, music, ritual, and faith continue to shape identity across communities. In Jerusalem, sacred spaces stand within walking distance of one another. The call to prayer echoes across rooftops. Church bells mark time. Jewish prayer rises from ancient stone. These traditions have existed side by side for centuries, sometimes in tension, sometimes in quiet coexistence. Faith here is not only belief, it is geography. Across cities and villages, daily life reflects deep continuity. Markets overflow with produce and spices. Bread is baked fresh each morning. Meals are shared across generations. Music carries memory. Arabic melodies and Hebrew songs express longing, joy, and devotion. Weddings are celebrated with dance. Holidays mark seasonal and spiritual rhythms. Language itself tells the story of coexistence and separation. Arabic, Hebrew, English, and older tongues shaping conversation and identity. Despite political boundaries, cultural exchange has never fully stopped. Foods overlap. Customs mirror one another. Humor, hospitality, and resilience are widely shared values. This cultural resilience is rooted in the very earth of the region, where the ancient and the modern are layered atop one another. In the quiet of the countryside, the landscape itself is an act of preservation. Stone walls, centuries-old olive groves, and traditional architecture serve as the physical backdrop for these enduring lives. From the weathered hands of a craftsman carving olive wood to the intricate patterns of traditional embroidery, the work of the human hand remains a primary way that identity is kept alive. These are the tactile traditions that no map can fully bisect. Skills and styles that have been passed down through the bloodlines of the land, surviving every political shift and administrative change. In the bustling urban centers, this continuity is found in the shared pace of the street. Even as skylines modernize and technology changes the way people connect, the fundamental rhythms of the Mediterranean and the desert remain. The afternoon sun casts the same long shadows over stone-paved alleys. And the evening breeze brings the same relief it has for millennia. This is the human scale of history, where the act of walking to a shop, sharing a cup of coffee, or nodding to a neighbor transcends the noise of the headlines. It is in these unscripted, everyday moments that the deepest connections to the land and to one another are forged. Creating a social fabric that is as complex and durable as the stones of the cities themselves. For many, culture becomes a form of stability, something held onto when circumstances feel uncertain. It anchors identity in daily practice rather than political outcome. Children learn traditions not through instruction, but participation. They absorb identity through family, neighborhood, and ritual. In this land, culture does not erase difference. It preserves it while also revealing unexpected connections. As decades passed, the search for stability became a defining feature of life in this land. Governments, organizations, and communities sought ways to reduce violence and create predictability in everyday life. Formal negotiations emerged at different moments, attempting to address borders, governance, security, and recognition. Some agreements brought temporary calm. Others raised expectations that later dissolved. Each effort left its imprint, not only in policy, but in public memory. Alongside diplomacy, grassroots initiatives took shape. Educators, artists, religious leaders, and community organizers worked quietly to maintain dialogue. In classrooms, students learned history shaped by perspective and experience. In cultural spaces, shared music and art offered moments of connection. For many people, stability is defined less by political milestones and more by daily continuity. The ability to reach work without interruption, to visit family without delay, to plan for the future with confidence. Urban life reflects this complexity. In Israeli cities, cafes, offices, and universities function within a constant awareness of security concerns. In Palestinian cities and towns, economic and social life adapts to shifting access and regulation. Rural communities face their own challenges. Farmers remain tied to seasonal cycles, land access, and water availability. Harvests continue even as uncertainty shapes planning. This pursuit of stability is etched into the very infrastructure that binds the region together. From the air, a vast network of highways, power lines, and water pipes stretches across the terrain. Silent reminders that basic human needs know no boundaries. The movement of goods and services continues through every season. Trucks carrying produce, commuters filling train platforms, and the steady hum of electricity in the night. These systems represent a quiet, practical resilience. A complex machinery of modern life that operates in the background, providing a foundation of normalcy even when the political horizon remains clouded. It is in the reliability of these essential services that many find the most tangible form of peace. Beyond the concrete and steel, the natural environment offers a shared sanctuary that demands its own form of cooperation. The wind that sweeps across the Jordan Valley and the rains that replenish the shared aquifers do not stop at checkpoints. Across the region, nature remains a common denominator, where the conservation of a single stream or the protection of a migratory bird flyway becomes a collective responsibility. In the faces of those who work the land or protect its resources, there is a shared understanding that the health of the environment is irrevocably linked to the survival of all. This ecological interdependence serves as a quiet, steady pulse, a reminder that despite every division, the land remains a single, breathing entity that sustains every life upon it. Young people across the region grow up with layered identities, shaped by family history, education, media, and lived experience. They inherit narratives older than themselves, while imagining futures that may differ from the past. Despite hardship, cooperation persists in quiet forms. Shared environmental concerns, medical coordination, and humanitarian efforts reveal practical interdependence. The search for stability here is not linear. It advances, pauses, and retreats. But it remains central, because beneath political structures lies a common desire for safety, dignity, and continuity. This land has never been simple. Its complexity is not an exception, it is its defining characteristic. Across hills, deserts, and coastlines, history remains present. Not as a distant record, but as a living influence, shaping how people move, speak, and remember. Israel and Palestine are often described through conflict, but life here cannot be understood through that lens alone. It is also a land of routine and resilience, of families gathering at the end of the day, of markets reopening each morning. Of traditions carried forward through repetition rather than decoration. The land itself has witnessed countless transitions. Empires have come and gone, borders have shifted, languages have changed. Yet people have remained, adapting to new realities while holding on to memory. Sacred places continue to draw pilgrims and residents alike. Not only because of belief, but because of continuity. Generations return to the same stones, the same paths, the same prayers. As the sun traverses the sky, casting long shadows over the limestone ridges and the Mediterranean surf, a sheer scale of this continuity becomes visible. From the air, the physical evidence of time is written into the earth. The ancient terraces carved by hands long gone, the Roman stone that supports a modern home, and the winding paths that have been walked for 3,000 years. This is a geography that absorbs everything. Every footprint, every foundation, and every harvest is a layer added to a story that never ends. The landscape does not judge the changes, it simply endures, providing the stage upon which the next generation will write its own chapter. In the quiet hours between sunset and dawn, the artificial lines of maps seem to fade, replaced by the natural rhythm of the land. The distant lights of cities and villages twinkle across the valleys, merging into a single, luminous tapestry that reveals just how close these lives truly are. This shared space, though often contested, is governed by the same sky and the same seasonal rains. In the silence of the night, there is a profound sense that the land is larger than any one moment of its history. A vast, breathing sanctuary that continues to offer both shelter and challenge to all who call it home. In towns and villages, daily life unfolds quietly. Children play, elders recount stories, meals are prepared and shared. These moments rarely appear in headlines, yet they form the foundation of lived experience. Understanding this land requires listening, not only to history, but to the present. To voices shaped by different paths through the same geography. There is no single narrative that contains it all. Instead, there are many, overlapping, sometimes conflicting, often deeply personal. Together we follow the land through time. Not to resolve its questions, but to illuminate its depth. To recognize that identity here is layered, that belonging is complex. That history does not disappear, it accumulates. Israel and Palestine remain places of meaning to millions. Not only because of politics or faith, but because they are home. A land still unfolding, still lived in, still shaped by those who wake each day within its boundaries. Here, the future remains unwritten. And like the past, it will be shaped not only by decisions made in halls of power, but by ordinary lives continuing, adapting, and enduring. For more journeys like this, click subscribe and join us for more adventures around the world.